Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, which is a deep dive conversation into the most pressing issues, the most urgent conversation, the most controversial subjects going on in the world today. And today is no exception. We are going to go deep into these issues. What I said is that we started late because we had a special time tonight at 11 p.m. I notified everyone because I needed to rest more. I'm trying to listen to my body. As you know, this week I've been not feeling well. I've been struggling with illness. And I feel about 80% now. Still got a little cough, still a little worn out, still not, still feeling kind of bone tired, but I don't feel super sick. I just feel tired more than anything else. And I want to thank everybody for their suggestions of remedies and recipes and advice and tips and just warning me that I better not do another live that night, or I better get into bed, or I better log off, and all these things. And I did my best to listen to you because I love you all and I appreciate you all. As I get older, I'm learning to listen to my body. So thank you all for that reminder. Tonight, we're not going to go for a long time, but there are some stories that I wanted to cover. Really, one really important story that I think we absolutely have to cover. A tenured professor at Muhlenberg College in Pennsylvania was fired for, you'll be shocked to know, Palestine. Mara Finkelstein, who is a professor of anthropology at Muhlenberg College, was literally fired from her job as a professor of anthropology. She'd been there for 9 years. She was a tenured professor. We'll talk about what all this means at Muhlenberg College, which is a small liberal arts school in Allentown, Pennsylvania, my home state. The school has about 2,200 students, and she's been there for a long time. She earned tenure in 2021, so she's been tenured for 3 full years, and everything was good until she spoke up about the genocide in Gaza. Once she spoke up about the genocide in Gaza, suddenly she was gone. I want to talk about how this happened and why this happened. I got wind of it today, and I reached out to her to find out what happened, and more importantly, to make sure that she was okay, and to show solidarity and figure out how we can help fight and organize for this woman. Again, Mara Finkelstein is her name, and this is part of a disturbing trend we've seen in the United States. It's a disturbing trend we've seen in academia, which has become increasingly hostile to radical thought, to oppositional ideas, and certainly to anti-Zionist thought in the last 12 months. It's always been like that, but it's become more obvious to many people in the last 12 months. Muhlenberg College is not exceptional in that way. But let me start from the beginning here. Again, Mara Finkelstein is a professor of anthropology. She's working, she's teaching. There's no threat to her job security at all over the 9 years, right? She went through tenure. We'll talk about that. She got tenure. That's supposed to grant her effectively job security, job safety, certainly free academic freedom. And everything was normal. Students liked her. She was popular. She was respected by her colleagues, most of them. Obviously not all, given what we've just seen. And then she posted something on the internet, again, in the aftermath of Israel's post-October 7th invasion of the Gaza Strip. As the war became more disproportionate, as the force became more excessive, as the targets became more indiscriminate, more and more people stood up and spoke out, including many academics. And of course, Mara Finkelstein was one of those academics. And on her Instagram page, she reposted something from Remy Kenazi, who's a friend of mine and a great, wonderful, brilliant Palestinian poet. Remy wrote this and she reposted it. It said, "Do not cower to Zionists. Shame them. Do not welcome them in your spaces. Do not make them feel comfortable. Why should those genocide-loving fascists be treated any different than any other flat-out racist? Do not normalize Zionism. Don't normalize Zionists taking up space." This is what Remy posted. And Maura Finkelstein, who, by the way, is no relation to Norm Finkelstein, that probably doesn't need to be said, but some people may be wondering. I don't know. So um, that was the word. Well, that didn't make people at Muhlenberg College happy. After she posted it or reposted it, um, people wrote in, people complained, people said that this was a violation of the university's codes. In fact, college, the college determined that Finkelstein, again, a tenured professor, had done a fireable, had made a fireable offense. They said that she had violated the equal opportunity and non-discrimination policies of the university. The equal opportunity and non-discrimination policies of the school. Wow. Wow, Muhlenberg. That's all you can say at some point. It's like, wow, Muhlenberg. So our colleague, our friend, our sister, Mara, was then fired by Muhlenberg. Now I'm going to take a step back and break down the tenure process for some people, because some people are saying, what does that even mean? So if you are a professor, you end up, if you're lucky, on the tenure track when you're first hired, particularly early in your career. You're on the tenure track. And what that means is that for 5, 6, 7, usually 7, 6 or 7 years, you are in a kind of probationary period. Sometimes you get 2 3-year contracts, sometimes you get 1 6-year contract, sometimes you get 7 1-year contracts. But you're on a track where they are watching you and determining whether you're eligible to be made a tenured faculty member. On the tenure track, you are still untenured or non-tenured. As a non-tenured faculty member, you can be fired. You can be let go fairly easily. But over the course of the tenure track, particularly, well, it depends on the school. Your research, your teaching, and your service are evaluated. They assess what kind of a scholar you are, what kind of a teacher slash educator you are, classroom teacher, as well as other forms of educational intervention, and what kind of a colleague you are, what kind of service you provide to the university, whether it's being on committees, whether it's working with students, whatever. So research, teaching, and service. At the end of your tenure track process, you submit a file. There is a review that happens internally. There's a review that happens at the department level, but usually the college level. If you're at a university, the university level. There's all these levels and committees that have to sign off and vote and approve. Your dean, your department chair, the provost of the university, sometimes even the president have to approve your tenure. Outside people do it as well. There's a slew of outside readers and reviewers who go over your stuff, and at the end of all of that, they decide that you are tenurable. When you get tenure, you are now promoted, usually, but you're made a tenured faculty member. That's the point. And as a tenured faculty member, you can't be fired easily. There has to be a very unusual circumstance. You basically have a job for life. You don't renew your contract every 2 years or every 5 years or every 20 years. You have a job for life unless you do something to violate that. It's like being on the Supreme Court, right? Once you make the confirmation to get on the Supreme Court is intense and heavy, but once you're on the Supreme Court, you have a position for life unless something egregious or extraordinary happens. Now, the logic of tenure, and this matters. The logic of tenure was not to give people jobs for life. It wasn't to de-incentivize people from working harder or to make people think that they didn't have to do stuff. No, the point of tenure was to grant academic freedom, to enable academic freedom. Still sick, I gotta hydrate. It was to enable academic freedom. The idea being that if a person is always worried about their job, if a person is always uh, unable to say, I got this no matter what I do, then it will be harder to publish or produce a cutting edge thinking. It'll be harder to challenge the status quo. It will be harder to produce counterintuitive thoughts. It will be harder to go against the power structure because, again, if they can fire you, you're not going to do it. How much easier is it to write a book that challenges conventional medical thought or conventional philosophical thought or conventional legal thought if I know the president can't just make a call and say, hey, stop telling people this earth is round. Stop telling people that this drug doesn't work. Stop telling people that this multinational corporation is destroying the environment. Stop doing that. Because if I can get fired, then those companies or that power structure or that judge or that president can come in, can swoop in and take my job, which then de-incentivizes people from doing that kind of work. That's the argument. That's the argument for tenure. So when you give somebody tenure, it's serious. Academia thrives on free speech. It thrives on protecting academic freedom. You can write what you want. I don't have to agree with it, but I can't take action against you because your thought, your approach is different than mine. That's the whole point of it. So this woman is literally getting fired for her thoughts. For her thoughts. Now, what's wild is when you look at what she posted, and again, she reposted, she did a picture slide of this tweet from Reminiscent. It's on her personal Instagram page. She posted a tweet to her Instagram. She didn't do it as a professor. She didn't do it as a representative of the university. She did it as herself. But again, it shouldn't matter because there's nothing wrong with saying this. So let's start there, right? And then we'll get to the the fireable offense. They they fired her for violating equal opportunity and non-discrimination policies. Um, we saw something at NYU a couple of weeks ago where New York University said very clearly that Zionists that just because you make a critique of Zionists versus say Jewish people, that distinction that many people made to avoid being anti-Semitic doesn't necessarily shield you from the allegation of anti-Semitism. In other words, you could be called anti-Semitic for saying that you're critical of Zionists. Zionists are I won't call them a protected class, but they're certainly active. They're framing Zionism or Zionists as a protected group in the context of the NYU student handbook. So, or the school handbook. And so there's an increasing space to criticize, to challenge, to censure, to punish, and even to fire faculty or students, to expel students for being critical of Zionism. So now they're basically saying you can't criticize Zionists because if you criticize Zionists, you're criticizing Israel. And if you're criticizing Israel, then you're criticizing Jews. And if you're criticizing Jews, then you're an anti-Semite. So even when you're saying, look, what's going on in Gaza is an atrocity, it doesn't matter. It becomes dangerous. It becomes dangerous thought at the modern university campus. And as a dangerous thought, they might got to get rid of you. They might got to get rid of you. And so we saw this happen right now with Maura Finkelstein. They literally fired her. They told her in late May that she was fired. Now, let's look at what the actual tweet said, because I don't want there to be any confusion here. He's challenging Zionist ideology. He's saying, let's not normalize Zionism. Let's not make it into an identity that is just an identity that people have. No, it's a political ideology that is bound up in something awful and racist. That's his position. And he's saying, don't normalize it. And she's saying the same thing. And the school fired her for that, despite the fact that, again, tenure is ironclad. You can write a book with wrong data, not dishonest data, but you can write a book where you made a mistake. You can write a book where where you draw a conclusion that's later disproven. All that's fair game. You can do a million things as a faculty member and not get fired, but somehow this is the line. Again, they're conflating Zionism and Judaism and then punishing people who dare to challenge Zionism. And when I say they, I'm talking about Muhlenberg College, because that's clearly what's happened here. And so this is not a small thing. This is a huge deal. This is the first time that we know of that someone has been fired from a tenured job for anti-Zionist speech. Usually when we hear these kinds of cases, it's an untenured professor and they just cut the contract. They cancel the contract. They might even pay him out for a year. But what they're going to basically do is say, we're not giving you tenure here. You can't get tenure here. One of the more famous cases was Norman Finkelstein. Norman Finkelstein, as you all know, one of the towering scholars on Israel-Palestine in the United States and even in the world, a political historian, the leading political historian on Gaza. He stepped up in the scene in the 90s, had some very famous debates with Alan Dershowitz, and Finkelstein himself will tell you this. I mean, if you look on the channel here, I did an interview with Finkelstein where he broke down what happened between him and Dershowitz. And Finkelstein was up for tenure at DePaul University. And Alan Dershowitz didn't like the fact that Finkelstein owned him very publicly. Broke down, did a forensic analysis of his book. Basically said said that his footnotes were bad. Said that he basically was a plagiarist. These were his allegations. But he also just dragged him in a debate. He just beat him. He just dog walked him in a debate. Dershowitz started calling DePaul University, according to Finkelstein and according to other people I've spoken to. And he intervened in the tenure process, saying that he should not get tenure at the university, even though Dershowitz had absolutely nothing to do formally or institutionally with DePaul. So all of this happens, and Finkelstein doesn't get tenure. So we've seen cases like that where someone does not get tenure because of their position on Palestine. We've seen non-tenure track people, adjuncts and professors of practice, not get their jobs because, or not keep their jobs because of their position on Palestine or their position on Israel, their critiques of Israel, or their critiques specifically of Zionism. And then, of course, my dear friend and brother Stephen Salaita, who worked at Virginia Tech, then he took a job at University of Illinois. And after he accepted the job, took the job, and was hired with tenure, although he never started the job, the donors started bombarding the administration and demanding his firing. So they basically, after he left his job and he started the new job with a contract, at the last minute, at the highest level, after communicating to him that he should move and yada, 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 they took the job away from him. And they said things like his tweets were uncivil. Read Stephen Salaita's book, Uncivil Rights, where he breaks down what that means and why. It's a great conversation he has about civility, but also about that whole journey and that process. Anyway, so Stephen Salaita was kind of a person who lost tenure, but technically hadn't been tenured. They didn't. The school's premise wasn't we're taking your tenure from you. The school's argument was, of course, that they hadn't fully hired him yet. This was just part of the process, which was bullshit. But at the end of the day, it wasn't quite what's happening with Mara Finkelstein right now in Muhlenberg. Because in Muhlenberg, she's on the faculty already. She has tenure. She's there. She's successful. She's prolific, productive at least. I would say prolific, but you can have your debate depending on the discipline. But I think she's an incredibly productive, if not prolific, scholar. One wrote a wonderful book on Duke University Press, which is the leading press in anthropology. She did amazing things, and they fired her. And they said, "We're firing you because you're because you're discriminatory. We're firing you because you violate the school's policy on not being discriminatory, and basically you're racist against Jews." Now, here's the funkiest part. Among the funkiest parts, Maura Finkelstein is Jewish. Maura Finkelstein is Jewish. So these policies, which are purported to be designed to protect Jewish people, makes a Jewish person the first and only person to be punished by the policy. Again, because the policy presumes that to be Jewish is to be Zionist, not that a Jew could be anti-Zionist. And so so they're punishing Mara Finkelstein to protect her from people like Mara Finkelstein. It's absolutely wild. So there's so many things here. Again, universities are beginning increasingly to adopt the IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, which doesn't effectively allow for any criticism of Israel, past or present. And they're beginning to weaponize this. This is part of the backlash to the campus uprisings in 2024. This is part of it. They're now going to punish every student who stood up and fought, every student who stood up and resisted, every student who challenged what was happening in Gaza. They're now going to say, yeah, well, watch yourself, because you're going to be on a list where you can't get a job afterward. Watch yourself. You're not going to be able to go to college or post college endeavors. You're not going to be able to pursue post college endeavors like law school, because there's a list. Watch out. You may get locked up protesting on campus. Watch out. We've now banned and criminalized your encampment. Watch out, college students and faculty who help them. This is all part of what academia is doing right now to squash anti-Zionist energies and movements and political organizing. It's quite stunning and quite frustrating when you watch how it's happening. So you see this framework here, and now tenure was the one thing among academics. There's an argument that always went, don't talk about Palestine until after you get tenure. But now what they've effectively said is there is no after tenure. And that's a message for you faculty out there too. If you wait until after tenure to declare yourself as an abolitionist, or if you want to wait to after tenure to call for an end to uh, uh, the occupation of Palestine or the repression of Palestinian people globally, if you wait until tenure to speak up and speak out against certain things, one, there's always going to be another trinket they throw at you. There's always going to be another promotion, another chair, another funding stream. But on top of that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because even after tenure now, they'll still take the job from you. They'll still take the opportunity from you. So they put you in a constant state of fear, these administrators do. They put you in a constant state of terror, these activists do, to make sure that you don't say anything. And they're going to now take someone like Marc Finkelstein, who probably will sue and will likely win, but that's still a victory for the school. According to reports, Stephen Salidas settled at a very nice rate, from the school. But that rate has, potentially could have had that last in the rest of his life. Because if you get blackballed and you can't work another job, what good is it, whatever amount you get? Even if it's 6 or 7 or 8 figures, right? At some point, if you're not allowed to work, if you're not allowed to pursue your passion, if you're not allowed to live your gifts, what do you do? So the whole idea here is to intimidate. The whole case here is not just to shut down an individual anti-Zionist Jewish professor. The point here is to show to the whole world, look what happens if you continue to do this. This is what AIPAC does in Democratic primary elections, right? They do things like to people like Jamal Bowman. They say, look what happens, or Cori Bush, look what happens when you stand up. Look what happens when you speak out. This is the reality. So the fact that Muhlenberg College is doing this is a signpost of what's going on in the entire academic infrastructure in the United States. It is a mess. It is an awful mess, and it's not getting any better. We're going to have Mara on, hopefully, if she's available next week to talk about her own ordeal. But I just want to say, Professor Finkelstein, we send you love. We send you our solidarity and strength, our organizing energy. Let us know what you need, and we'll make sure that we're there for you. Everybody stay right here. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some updates in the Diddy trial before we go. Family, y'all gonna have to just wait 2 more seconds. I need more water. Take another break. We'll be right back. Thank you for your patience, y'all. I need to grab some more water there. I didn't hear the countdown. I told you, man, I'm sick and I'm fighting it, but we're going to keep going. More bad news for Diddy, to be sure, but really for the world. A new Diddy accuser came forward this week. In a new lawsuit, Thalia Graves alleges that Diddy and his then bodyguard, Joseph Sherman, drugged, bound, and raped her in the summer of 2001 at the Bad Boy Studios in New York City. Graves, who was 25 years old at the time, says Diddy gave her a glass of wine, and after a few sips, she passed out. When she woke up, she says she was naked with her hands tied behind her back. And at one point, Graves says she started to scream, and Sherman slammed her head on the pool table. She goes on to describe throwing up during the assault, but Diddy didn't stop. Graves claims the alleged rape was recorded and then sold by Combs as pornography. Now, Sherman denies the allegations. Reps for Diddy have yet to respond. This is one of the more disturbing of the Diddy accusations, and we see and hear so many of them. She spoke at a press conference. I'm going to play the footage, giving you a warning. Again, it's emotional, it's painful, but I want you all to get a sense of what's happening here, and partly because there's so much victim blaming and so much victim hate. And sometimes I think it's important. I genuinely think it's important to see the actual victim and to hear their story. Here's her at her press conference.
The internal pain after being sexually assaulted has been incredibly deep and hard to put into words. It goes beyond just physical harm caused by and during the assault. It's a pain that reaches into your very core of who you are and leaving emotional scars that may never fully heal.
This is the first, or not the first, this is the latest in a long string of accusations against Diddy. It's painful. It's hard to hear. And some people are going to say, well, why would she wait this long? I think the thing that people don't understand sometimes is that victims come forward when there's safety. Victims come forward when they feel space to enter the scene. Victims come in when they feel that they have other people standing with them, so that people won't treat them as liars and money grubbers and et cetera, et cetera. Um, Also, sometimes it takes that long to realize what happened to you. Sometimes it takes that long to come to terms with what happened to you. Sometimes it takes that long to feel you'll be believed. Sometimes it takes that long to be safe from the person who harmed you. All of these things are legitimate and common reasons why for people who make these choices. So, rather than doubt them, I like to sort of think more about, you know, the perpetrator here and say, what did the person do to them that is so awful that they're now afraid to live out loud, or live to tell the truth, or to tell their truth, or to more accurately, or to share their pain. I don't think, I'm not sitting here like, why is she waiting now? I'm like, what did he do allegedly that made her get to this place? To me, that's the more appropriate and necessary question at a moment like this. Diddy is currently locked up in Brooklyn, in the same place that they held R. Kelly, same place they held El Chapo, in fact. Um, and there's so much conversation about what's Diddy eating? Is Diddy getting a safe meal? Did he scared that someone's going to slip him a poison apple? Diddy is not happy with the food. All these things I couldn't care less about. I care about them for prisoners. I care about them for incarcerated people. I don't think prisons like that. I don't think prisons should exist. And I certainly don't think prisons like that should exist. But I don't have any unique outrage for Diddy. As an abolitionist, I have an outrage, but not as a Diddy advocate, because I'm not a Diddy advocate. Instead, I'm thinking right now, how are Diddy's children dealing with this? How are Diddy's victims dealing with this? How are Diddy's employees who are and Diddy's artists who are now going to lose big because of Diddy's harmful and violent actions? I'm thinking about all the different layers of harm, from psychological to familial tears to emotional abuse to uh, all of it, right? Is all going to chip away because of what Diddy's done. And so when I think about him, I don't think about his well-being at that level. I think more about the well-being of his victims. Um, and as more people come forward with allegations, I don't know if these are. I don't know what the end game is for them, but I'm glad that people are coming forward. People seem to be struggling to say these truths, but they also feel relieved once they've said them. So I'm grateful that people are coming out. I'm grateful that people are telling the truth. I'm grateful that people are also on the other side of the equation. People like me trying to scramble to figure out how we as a collective society can best deal with the harm that Diddy's caused in ways that are actually restorative, that actually leave this thing better than we found it, and that aren't relying on a punishment or retributive model. But to get any of that, there needs to be accountability. And Diddy does not hold himself accountable for anything that he's done. The one thing that he held himself accountable for was the same thing that he lied about and said this is all BS until a tape popped up. So it's tough. It's tough. But I hope this new accuser has. I wish her nothing but luck and strength and healing the journey. And speaking of Diddy, and maybe why it's so difficult to get accountability, Diddy's music catalog has seen a jump in streams since his arrest last week. Industry data shows an average increase of 18.3 in on-demand streams the week of his arrest. Same thing happened after the R. Kelly documentary. His numbers doubled. And as experts say, that's just a natural curiosity. Music becomes another piece of information as people try to make sense of it all. So now people are fishing through the music, trying to see if there's codes in the music. People are trying to listen to see, what's possible. But be careful, y'all. Just like with R. Kelly. When R. Kelly, this wasn't about the artistry. This wasn't about the autonomy of the artist. You lose autonomy when you start harming other people, especially children. So in the case of R. Kelly, all the people who started listening to the streams out of curiosity or who just now got 12 play on their mind and they want to go hit play on the app, you're literally giving him the money that he needs to keep his oppressive cult going. So you got to starve the beast. You can't feed the beast. And that's the argument, with Diddy. It's a couple things. Some people are nostalgic. Some people are excited. It does make some people think of other people. Some people are trying to support the artist that he allegedly, jerked around. So they have a fighting chance at resources. So all of it is possible. But I want everyone to just think, if you give to Diddy's estate, to Diddy's legacy, to Diddy's companies, when you buy that music, when you stream that song, you're investing in a person who's going to use that money to get the best lawyers to get off, to get a not guilty verdict, so that he can keep doing the harm that he's doing in the world. That's my read, and that's what I'm sticking to. So just be mindful about supporting any streams that have a Diddy attached to it. That's all. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Let's move on. In fact, let's say goodbye. I love y'all so much, and I'm gonna talk to y'all tomorrow. I'll be up tomorrow, but I'm tired and I'm still sick, so I'm gonna rest my body. I'm gonna listen, but please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button, family. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. And after you do those things, hit the join button. Become a monthly member of the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, and it goes a long way toward helping us meet our financial goals, so that we can do the things that we need to do, like building infrastructure, like paying our staff, like creating new content ideas. All of this matters. And so I'm grateful also for all the super chats out there. James did just say, turn your volume up or plug your mic in. He said, we can't hear you, brother, and sent $10. A Bullet the Bunny, the OG of the building. She said, the Marc Lamont Hill Health and Wellness Fund. He old family help him out. All facts. All facts. Dallas' finest Jazz Peace in the building. We miss you. Thank you so much for being here. We missed you on, you came in like 5 minutes late. We know the universe is upside down because you're so prompt and so good and so attentive. We really, really appreciate you. James Harvey dropped 50. Wow, my brother, you have no idea how grateful we are for that donation. Thank you. And Power to the People podcast. Say, can you explain how this is different from Candace being canceled and this professor? Well, I think in both cases they were fired for having views that stood against the status quo. In Candace's case, she canceled when she was not a tenured faculty member. So while I hated the reason she was fired, there's nothing we can do about it. Whereas in this professor's case, they're just firing without cause at a job that doesn't have an at-will employment model. If it was just like, oh, it doesn't work out, this isn't working out, okay, we're out. But that's not what the job is. So any other questions? Okay, y'all. Hit that like button, hit that join button, hit that subscribe button. Also, family, If you can't make a monthly commitment, consider going to PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. Right now, our Cash App will be down until tomorrow, but think about PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, and use that as a space to support what we're doing here. Think about it as a one-time tuition payment of $10. If everybody watching right now would drop $10 in, we would be cooking right now as a channel. Anyway, y'all, I love y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.